So of course I would like to thank the Institute for giving me the opportunity of presenting my project. I gave it the title, We Live, Shoah and Naqba. The paper I sent to the Institute will only be available online in a fortnight. I'll try to give you a summary. It's a multimedia project with film, theater, readings and lectures, photography exhibitions, and music. Originally, this project was a way of tackling with my family history, with the story of my family, which I had begun writing. The paternal side being Jewish, the maternal side was not, but on both sides, it was not only a story of persecution, but also a story of resistance. If the resistance was a topic of discussion, personal experiences of the Shoah were not, as was the case in most survivors' families. All his life, my father was haunted by the memory, or missing memories, of what he had lived through when he was not even consciously a Jew, having been educated as a normal French boy in Paris. All his life he suffered of depression. My grandfather never spoke about life in his native country, the Bessarabian part of Russia, now part of Ukraine, nor gave he his children a religious education, only using a few words of Yiddish and Russian in front of them. No cultural transmission whatsoever, albeit his French retained a very strong Yiddish accent all his life. I knew a lot about politics and history as a whole, but nothing about the background and culture of my Jewish ascendants. My father was a historian who didn't have a clue about the history of his own family. When, end of February, I started working on this project, I first did not realize its deeper meaning for myself. In a word, where refugees are mostly unwanted, just like the Jews during the Holocaust. Living in Germany, where official Vergangenheitsbewältigung, which means coming to terms with the past, did not prevent the NSU trios murdering unpunished during 10 years. At a time when in Paris, right-wing extremists shout on the street publicly, Jews out of France, I was fully conscious of the necessity of memory. But soon I began to realize that this project was more to me, a kind of personal Vergangenheitsbewältigung. That my father did pass me on an unconscious legacy, his all-pervading fear. Now I know that this project is a kind of catharsis. The Polish photograph Bogdan Frymont said about his own pictures of Kazimierz, Krakow's old Jewish quarter, it has exorcised the toxic silence which haunted me for many years. Then I realized that many of the artists invited to contribute, that is, I had invited to contribute to this project, had gone the same path, each of them with his or own means of expression, literature, film, lyrics, photography. Working out the past, making it our own in a creative and life-acknowledging way enables us to leave loss, fear, and anger behind, telling the world they are dead and we honor them. But we are alive and we choose to live. We are alive and we are not afraid. Furthermore, we want to do our part, however small, to raise awareness about the hydra fascism growing again everywhere in Europe. I would like to quote Susan Neiman, a philosopher, a Jewish American, director of the Einstein Forum in Potsdam. Isn't it time to send a message to Germany's children and everyone else's that will help them to stand up against present evils as well as mourning past ones? Information and education, especially through art, are the only way of helping the young to learn tolerance and to work for peace and understanding so that the horror of the Holocaust never happens again. We can set and cultivate the seeds of tolerance and humanity. I had examples in my family and its friends. As a young girl, my grandmother resisted against fascist ideology and the German occupation. At 17, she was caught by the Gestapo, severely tortured, and then sent to Ravensbrück, the concentration camp. After liberation, she went once a year, every year, to Ravensbrück as a member of the French Association of Deportees. She talked to students, she visited schools, and talked to the people of the region. In 1985, she contributed to founding Avabasta in Corsica, an association dedicated to counter racism, especially racism against North African workers. Now, more than 80 years old, she keeps on fighting for human rights, keeping alive the spirit of the French resistance. My grandparents and parents always supported and gave shelter to oppressed and persecuted people. During the Spanish Civil War, in Morocco, when the secret police of King Hassan II kidnapped and tortured opponents, during the Algerian War, in the times of South African apartheid, and my father was a member of the Association of French Jews for Peace in Palestine. Another legacy of my family, fighting against racism and injustice wherever it happens. So, the next step in working out the concept of my project evolved organically when the Naqba introduced itself. The Shoah was an unprecedented crime against humanity. After centuries of persecutions, a total destruction of Jewish life was planned and industrially organized. Although the Arabic word Naqba had the same signification as the Hebrew catastrophe, it means catastrophe in both languages, the dramas are of a different nature. Naqba, what is Naqba? Naqba is the name used by the Palestinians to describe their expulsion out of their homeland in 1948. But the state of Israel didn't plan a Holocaust, it planned a colonization. If Shoah and Naqba are of a different nature, there are parallels. In both cases, a way of life has been destroyed, people deprived of their lands and homes. Israel was built by traumatized people. Palestinians are a traumatized folk also. And it gets worse now when bombs are falling on Gaza, on schools and hospitals, and most victims, everyone knows, are civil persons, many children, mostly children. As the Israeli directors of the Jerusalem Film Festival declared on the 14th of July, the pain of Israelis and Palestinians is intertwined, and the first cannot cease as long as the other continues. Under such tragic circumstances is an artistic and scientific approach of the history of Shoah and Naqba, of the respective traumata of Jews and Palestinians, delusional and hopeless. Most Palestinians and Israeli Jews ignore the history of the other. That's why not only artists will contribute to this project, but also historians, philosophers, sociologists, and psychologists. I do believe that building bridges, not violence, is the right way to go that bringing artists together, encouraging them to work together, and giving them the opportunity to meet with young and old alike is the right thing to do. Quoting again the Israeli film directors, we as artists and creators expect from ourselves, the spectators, from the spectators and the media too, to issue a clear, loud cry for change. This project will hopefully be a small step towards change. Maybe a drop in an ocean of inhumanity, but as a German song goes, das weiche Wasser bricht den Stein, water was the stone. Thank you.